Well, hello there. Hello. Yes, excellent. Hello. Wow, it's so nice to see you all. Thank you for being here. This is fantastic. So, welcome to the in-person audience that I can see. Welcome to the virtual audience that I trust is there. And thank you all for joining us at the 27th Saskatchewan Festival of Words. So we have an incredible lineup of artists for you tonight, and I'm so excited for you to hear. Do you want to know who they are? Okay, so we've got Austin the Noble Savage Ahenakew. We've got, you know what, maybe give a round of applause as I'm saying this. We've got Peace Akintade. We've got Kassire, Janice Jolie, and Alessandra Naccarato. For folks who get a little sleepy into the evening, the event will be over around 10:30, 45-ish. No later. Everyone needs to go home. It's been a long day of festivaling. So I'm going to take the next 5 or 6 minutes to sort of situate us to this space. And in doing so, I'd love to invite everybody here, in person and online, to make yourselves 10% more comfortable. Whatever that means for you. So that means taking your shoes off. If you're online, if it means grabbing some tea, if it means turning your phones off, just settle in, because you're in for a good night. So my name is Kat Abenstein, and I'll be your host tonight. We are giving self-descriptions to be more accessible to folks who are blind, have low vision, or screen sensitivities. So I am a cis woman in her mid-30s. I have green-yellow eyes. I'm wearing a black outfit. And these amazing statement earrings made by my pal, Taya Gerbeza. So shout out to Taya. I also use she, her pronouns. So I've been involved with the spoken word community for the last 11 years, 7 of which I spent as an organizer in Regina. And I've competed at national festivals. I've been a coach for the Youth Poetry Slam teams in Regina. And I am the current program coordinator at the Saskatchewan Writers Guild, where I love to just slip in spoken word artists wherever and whenever I can. But tonight, I'm here as just an artist, not as an employee of anywhere. It's pretty nice, yeah. So it's important to take a moment and recognize the space that we're gathering in today and the rest of the weekend. As an uninvited settler on these beautiful prairie lands, where I call home, I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathering on Treaty 4 territory. This is the unceded territory of the Nahiawak, Anishinaabe, Dakota, Lakota, and Nakota nations, as well as the homeland of the Métis Nation. I'm grateful to these original caretakers, stewards, and storytellers of these lands, and it's especially important to acknowledge at a festival of stories that the stories of the original people of this place are still often silenced due to settler colonialism that persists to this day. And non-Indigenous people who live in Canada benefit from the colonialism that happened and happens here. And we are all responsible for our personal role in reconciliation. So may we move beyond just offering empty land acknowledgements. May we embody what it means to be in good relationship with each other and commit to doing the real work of reconciliation through education, policy changes, and conversation. I really like this, what I'm going to say next, about the Festival of Words, and that is that we are prioritizing equity and the mental and emotional safety of marginalized groups over the comfort of others. We strive to make this a safe space, safer space for everyone. So things like hate speech, insults, rude remarks, they won't be tolerated, either in person or online. And there's folks who can handle those concerns if you have them, so please let them know. To sort of sum it up, really short, don't be a dick. Okay. And of course, this festival would not be possible without the support of major funders. So thank you, Sask Arts, Sask Culture, Saskatchewan Lotteries, Canada Council for the Arts, the Government of Canada, and there are so many more funders and sponsors than I've mentioned because it takes an entire community to make a festival, so please thank them. And while we're giving thanks, let's thank some people. So let's thank Amanda and Sarah S. and Sarah G. and Ali and Evane, the festival interns. Thanks Eric and his tech team for the sound. Doesn't it sound good in here? Let's thank Jennifer and Janice. Yeah, round of applause. So who has been to a spoken word event before? Okay, yeah, backstage, there's cheers. Out front, excellent. I hope they've been to a spoken word event before. You might know that at spoken word events, we encourage audience engagement, both in person and online. And so here's a few engagement suggestions that you can do. If you're online, you can comment in the chat with a poetry line that resonates you from one of our poets, or you can even type snaps or however else you want to engage. For our in-person audience, you can literally snap. Yeah, let's practice that. Okay. Yeah, that sounds really good. Like a cool summer rain. Awesome. Snapping is a way that we can interact with our poets without interrupting them and letting them know that you appreciate their work. You can even make what we call cheesecake noises. So when you hear something tasty, so that's like a, yes. Also, did that make you feel awkward? Okay. We want you to take care of yourself tonight and to take care of each other. So our presenters may discuss sensitive topics or are speaking from very personal experiences, and they may not want to engage in discussion around these topics after the event. So please ask for consent before unleashing your questions, and be okay with the reality that they may not want to talk about it. Our artists are here to share their work with us, and in this space, they are artists, not our therapists. As well, we like to say that poetry causes feelings. So if you need to take a moment for yourself, leave the space, disconnect, know that you can always come back when you're ready. Okay, so that was a lot. So I think let's take a breath. I need a breath. Let's do that together on the count of 3. So 1, 2, 3. That feels good. Okay. So our format tonight will be treated to 10-minute bite-sized performances from all of these amazing artists. Then we'll take a very quick break that I hope you all stay for, and then we'll have a quick conversation afterwards about, does anybody like comic books or superheroes? You know, you heard of like origin stories? Yeah, those are some of the things that we're gonna talk about. Okay. Another tradition that we have in spoken word slams particularly is something called either a sacrificial poet or a calibration poet. Nobody's like scoring us, you might be judging us, but there's a difference. And so I'm going to offer a poem to kind of start us off tonight. Oh yeah, also blood, yeah. If you've been to a slam, you might be familiar with that. If you haven't, you're like, what is up with these people? Okay, so let me get my poet hat on, 1 second. This is called Moondog, and it's inspired by a dictionary from the Obscure Sorrows about something called scabulous, which is basically feeling proud of a certain scar that you have. With 2 decades of skin growth on my right arm, 3 moons now sit in the place where the dog's teeth punctured my skin and are now faint reminders of a paralyzing fear come true. This dog lunged for my throat, but I bartered for him to take my arm, and he did so greedily, shaking his head, shaking my body as my friend's mom screamed for him to stop. The thing is, She had been holding his canine body with her arms to hold him back as she paraded my fear in front of me, determined to prove that he was a good dog, that he wasn't the kind of dog with blood hunger on his breath, an unhinged beast desperate to make ground meat of my body. And I sat there in the armchair in my friend's living room on the edge of my seat, literally backed into a corner, fear wafting from my pores like the scent of a silver-plated rare steak as he snarled with raw rage and ripped himself from her arms, flying faster than Superman to my throat. But he missed, or I blocked him, or the gods stepped in, because instead of my throat, he had my arm in his mouth, teeth pierced into my flesh, blood pouring onto the floor until he finally didn't, and the shock and the screams that I realized I was screaming finally silenced. My friend's mom made me promise not to put her dog down before I even had a cloth for my arm. Of course I didn't. I don't want that. I didn't want her dog to die just because he attacked me, just because I told her mom that he didn't like me, that he snapped at me when I walked by, and he growled and snarled at me anytime I was near, and she was determined to prove me wrong. Her dog lived as my fear of dogs blossomed. I stopped going to their house. I walked on the opposite sidewalk when he was outside on the chain, rain pouring all around us. The wounds and swelling subsided while the anxiety grew those weeks and months in grade 9. The scars, a reminder of how lucky I was that all he took was a little bit of meat. Now, these waxing crescent moons rise on my wrist and are a reminder of when my canine fear peaked. But what goes up must come down. And after a few years of positive encounters with dog, my anxieties melted with every good girl tail wag, with every sloppy welcoming kiss, with every night spent in a dog's safe embrace. I became to understand the abuse the dog that attacked me experienced in his life. No dog wants to be bad. And I realized that in this case, it's actually true. There's no such thing as a bad dog, just bad owners. Thank you. Okay. Now for the full cast of our poets that are going to come out, I'm going to introduce you to our first poet tonight. So for our artist full bios, you have access to that. You can check everywhere to read their full bios, and please do, because they're just a very impressive bunch. But let me tell you a little bit of what you know and what you don't know. So our first poet is Janice Jolie. Janice Jolie is a queer second-generation settler of Korean descent, a contemporary folk musician, spoken word poet, bouffon clown, activist, and educator living in Toronto, Ontario. Lee's artwork explores gender empowerment, workers' rights, anti-racism, climate change, and community. And this year, she released her long-anticipated song cycle album titled Ancestor Song, and you should all get it. Google it now. I first witnessed Janice perform in something called the Underground Indies, or affectionately called the Undies, in Montreal, where she moved, so to set the stage, people stand in a big circle, poets battle head to head. She moved fearlessly through this circle of poets, and I still remember her reading from a piece of paper that I'm pretty sure was just a prop, because their performance was just that captivating. And a few years ago, I took a workshop with Janice, and in it, she posed the question, why did your ancestors choose you to be a storyteller? So audience, I ask you the same question. Why did your ancestors choose you to be a storyteller? And while you ponder this, witness the storyteller that is Janice Jolie. And please welcome them to the stage.
Hi, everybody. My name is Janice Jolie. My Korean name is Lee Seung-hye. My pronouns are she and they. To describe myself visually, I am a 5'6" Korean woman with long black hair, and I'm in a green dress. I'm gonna do some music spoken word for you that goes together. Does that sound okay? Yeah. The first poem is called Hard Femme, High Power, and I used to be scared to perform it because I was worried the men would get mad. And now I'm like, I hope the men get mad. I hope they feel uncomfortable. So that's the vibe of this poem. It's a gender empowerment piece. Check, check. So I'll be using my loop station to do this poem. No, I won't go, said no, I won't go. No, I won't go, said no, I won't go. Why are you walking down the street like you own this place, girl? I said, why are you walking down my street like you own this place? I won't go. No, I won't go, said no, I won't go. No, I won't go, said no, I won't go. No, I won't go, said no, I won't go. No, I won't go, said no, I won't go. No. When a femme walks out onto the street, go, said she is not, he is not, they are not meat. No, I won't go, said no, I won't go. When a femme walks out onto the street, she is not, he is not, they are not meat. You have no say on what they are wearing. You have no say on if they talk to you. You have no say on if they are smiling. Just move out of the way. Go. No, I won't go, said no, I won't go. Because with the thump, thump of my platforms and the zip, zip of my jean jacket, with the swish, swish of my silky tresses, move over, I have arrived. When I spread my long taloned hands into the air, stand up, strong-backed and sturdy, shut up! For I am speaking. A hard femme, high-power woman stands before you, and I demand respect. My pink-painted lips are stained from the malnutritious breakfast I had this morning. My blood is pumped up from all the man-spreaders that bulldozed on my way over here, still looking picture perfect. Miss Hard Femme, high power is here to demonstrate power in speaking femme, walking femme, living femme. Miss Hard Femme, high power is not here for men. Oh. Yes, it's true. I want power. I want the power to go out into the world and be the badass bitch that I am without reprimands. Not because I'm some slender piece of meat ready to be gazed at, glazed at, consumed, criticized, and controlled. No. I take no shit, and I guess you're done. I'm ready to pounce on the oppressor who pushes femmes off the page, off the stage, pushes femmes down. I will aggressively protect my right to exist and flourish, and I will shout down the throats of men who only understand and respond to languages of violence. I will go there. I will unabashedly kick you out of my way to get free. Are you sure about that? Does my ferocity scare you? Does my style and personality make you feel inferior? Am I allowed to for your comfort? Well, if you can't handle the truth, you can't handle the revolution. So comments deleted, friendship deleted, man repelling strategy completed. I got no time for your shit, so be on your way. I got no time to hold your hand today. This is my anthem for the how to get free world, the battle cry for the fight for your right world. This is the poisonous blossom of the patient bud unfurled. Prepare yourself to give up space, to give up entitlement, to give up comfort. For the hour has come for the hard, femme, high power human to push over the archaic institution of capital M, men. Thank you. I'm going to do this piece in Korean. The words say, rain falls, snow melts, oceans rise. In my body, blood like river water swirls and twirls. We are all floating on an ocean planet. Can you swim forever? Forever can you swim? So it's just a nice, happy song about climate anxiety. And to describe what I just did, I am now playing a trumpet. 눈은 녹고 비는 내리면 눈은 녹고 비는 내리며 바다는 떠오르고 내 몸속 비는 강물처럼 내 몸속 비는 강물처럼 내 몸속 비는 강물처럼 성급하게 휘두른다. 우린 모두 바다 행성에 떠다니는 사람들. 너는 영원한 수용할 수 있니 영원히 수용할 수 있니 감사합니다. Thank you so much.
Let's hear it again for Janice Jolie. Wow. See, did you doubt me? No, don't. Yes, that's what you can expect tonight. Just mind-blowingly awesome entertainment. So our next performer, I'm so excited to tell you about them. So our next performer is Austin, the noble savage Ahenakew. He has a unique style that weaves rhythm into storytelling and announces an urgent truth from the perspective of an Indigenous youth. I first met Austin when he was 15, with his hair hanging in front of his face as he performed to a small but riveted crowd. And since then, I've had just the honor of being witness to Austin's work in so many places, in classrooms, on stages, in Toronto, in a van. And it's just such a gift to see him transform from a shy kid at the library into a sought-after public speaker. And now, as a father to an amazing child, to see him not only affect the next generation, but also affect all of the generations in this building. So let the noble savage move you into action and welcome him to the stage.
Hello everyone, I am the Noble Savage. To describe my appearance, I am wearing a white and black toque that says Volcom on it. I am wearing a black shirt with Geronimo of the Apache tribe on it that says Disobey. And I'm wearing jeans and black and white shoes. I'm going to get right into my poetry here. I'm going to go into Reserve for the Beast, which is probably one of my oldest pieces. Close your eyes and imagine beauty. Imagine nature's abundance, respected and clean. Everyone has full and happy lives to lead, and life is working perfectly. Imagine being free. Imagine an abusive relationship, which is actually what it was. That's not a metaphor or simile. That's everything beautiful suddenly turning ugly. That's being locked in your own home, destroying you mentally, while everyone's watching you, acting like it's still working perfectly. Now, imagine a beast, but not the kind of beast that falls in love with beauty, but the kind of beast that is killing children one by one secretly, and is only noticed when it kills dozens weekly. Still, it's brushed under the rug because their futures were bleak, or the ones who were killed were just too weak. But a person's a person, no matter how small. But the way I see it, they don't seem to matter at all, because in the belly of the beast, there's at least 60% more illicit drug use. And heavy drinking goes up 35%. And that's only in the underage youth, too. But hey, I guess they have a way to escape. Snort this, inhale this, and inject that. And do it 12 times a day. If they run out of that, there's a can of paint thinner in the back. Good thing this beast isn't in the city, because that whole place has gone to crap. All their women have either been raped or kidnapped, and all their children live by the quote puff puff past, and past when given the chance to sit on Santa Claus's lap. They're fine though. Let's take away their money and supplies, ignore their cries, and remain blind to however more many people die. The beast is code for reserves, FYI. And it proves my point if it took me telling you to realize that there's a real problem right in our face. You just need to open your eyes. Because none of this would be happening if you could see what I'm seeing, if you could feel what I'm feeling, if your stomach twisted in knots like theirs do when they wash down a handful of pills with bleach. So imagine this beast. Imagine if he strolled into your city. Imagine if he killed all your children, raped and murdered your women, pushed everyone into alcohol and drug addiction, and over 50% of homes have people being beaten. Would you still think these people aren't being mistreated? No matter what we do, the scales always feel uneven. Regardless of there being a complete lack of reason, our mere existence is dealt with a charge of high treason. Despite your best efforts, we will not be cheapened. We won't be weakened. We live in a world that only serves us our truth after it's been sweetened, our reconciliation with a side of beating, and make us pay for it all with the last of our untainted feelings. My soul is in shambles over what I've been seeing. When our children are dead, it becomes a week-long trend. A couple of orange donuts from Timmy's to try and make amends when we all know that they couldn't care less. Ignorant ears deflect our distress, and we're sinking with all of this extra weight in our heads. We asked you to find our children, and you took our post down instead. Think I'm lying? See if you can tell the number of residential school deaths off the top of your head. Need a hint? It's just over 10,000. A 95th call to action should be the imprisonment of the people who kill our people, because these everyday laws just aren't working for us. Drugs, rape, kidnappings, murder, and thousands of unmarked graves still waiting beneath. As a country, how do you suppose we put this problem to peace? Now open your eyes. Thank you. Okay, this next piece is probably my newest piece that I've written. It is dedicated to my friend and coworker, Austin Adams, who passed away recently. I saw a kid at my high school. This was before my straight A's had been expelled. I never saw him again until I moved to a different house, a house with 2 doors, and each door a different fate. I saw a kid at my trap house. He asked for the back door. And for $100 of silence, I knew what this back door was for. The knocks would come, more and more. And even though they were making purchases, they had no idea what was in store. I saw someone already gone, because there were clouds in his eyes. I didn't recognize him, but I felt his soul within mine. I didn't know him any more than the memories in my mind. And I still pointed him in the direction of the door that resided behind. I saw a skeleton. It had knocked on my door. It had mistaken the front for the back door, and as it stared, not at me, but lifelessly at the floor, the eyes showed me a once hopeful boy I had seen before. He was shaking like it was December, and looked at our house like it was Christmas. But there was no twinkle in his eye, nor the boy I once missed. And even as I spoke to him, it was the back door he couldn't resist. I saw him more often, even though I knew him less and less. With each return, he slowly turned into a mess as the loss, sorrow, and pain peeled through his skin and began to show on his face. I began to wonder what might have happened had I turned him away from our place. I saw new faces at the door. I saw the time pass by. I got sick to my stomach because I've seen this time and time again. I saw a year without his presence. I saw better appliances in the back. I never saw an obituary, but the next knock was sent to the back. This is the trap. Thank you. Okay, this last one I'll be doing is called PTSD. Stands for petrified, terrified, and sometimes depressed. My name is Austin. I'm 21 years old, but every now and then, I'm not. You're not strong enough. It's a normal day, rain or shine. Anyone who may have passed by has seen my big-ass smile and already have plans for the rest of the day. I'm hanging out with friends, I'm hugging my girl, and I let my family down and have been ever since then. Papa, Tango, Sierra, Delta. A tap on my shoulder and I'm 12 years old again. I can't unclench my fist. I can't breathe. I keep hearing him yell at me. I can still feel that cold steel in my sleeve and I'm not even wearing a hoodie. What is happening to me? My eyes are watering. My arm is throbbing. I can see it all over again, and even now I can't stop it. You're not strong enough. I'm trying to focus, but I keep traveling back in time whenever I blink. The holes in the wall and broken glass run through my mind in what feels like the most literal sense. And I will never forget my cousin telling me I was his favorite person as he wiped the blood out of my eyes just in order for me to see through the pain. You're not strong enough. I hear those taunting words echoing in my brain. As each tear dribbles across my cheek, I sit in a hole in the wall where glass used to be, finding peace with every chilling inhale I breathe in. The stars look so beautiful. It's too bad they never work when I wish on every single one of them every single night. You're not strong enough. I saw and felt all the pain and I chose to run away. Then my therapist argues, saying, is a war veteran running away when he comes home from battle? Therapy and PTSD are difficult things to mix, and most days I can't handle it. Papa, Tango, Sierra, Delta. Papa, Tango, Sierra, Delta. PTSD. Early on, I learned how to become a man well before I learned how to be a child. Like a man drafted at 18, I was taken at 12. Then I just left my family in ruins because I wasn't strong enough. Now there are times when I'm afraid of my own shadow. Afraid of the man in the mirror because it brings me back to the shattered glass scattered on the floor from his last freakout. Maybe it's not so much the man in the mirror or the shadow that I cast, but the thought that statistically I will one day grow up to be him. Almost felt like nothing compared to his fist when I test the durability of that glass against my wrist. You might not be listening to this had that glass been slightly sharper, if I had tried just slightly harder. My abuser just got out of jail again. Maybe it's time for me to pick up that glass again and leave, because I would rather let this be the end than to have to deal with the monster who he made me to be. Papa, Tango, Sierra, Delta. My name is Austin. My mind makes me feel like I'm 12 years old again when I'm actually 21. And I struggle with PTSD. Help me. Thank you.
Keep that applause going for the noble savage. Thank you for being here tonight. You know, it's a little sad when there's no one there. So thank you. Let me tell you about our next artist. So Alessandra Naccarato was born and raised in Naccarato, which is Toronto, is an award-winning and well-recognized writer, touring internationally and nationally as a spoken word artist, and is the author of Imminent Domains, Reckoning with the Anthropocene, which is an essay collection, and Reorigin of Species, which is a poetry collection. And you can get the essay collection in the bookstore, so please do. In Alessandra's reading this morning, she read from an essay about, forgive me if I'm summing this up wrong, but the interconnectedness of geese. And in it, she said, no bird ever lands alone. And that image really stuck with me as I reflect on why spoken word can be so powerful. The symbiotic nature between audience and performer, the necessity of both of us to be here. And I just wanted to mention that tonight, no one lands alone. So together, please welcome Alessandra Naccarato.
Hello, what a pleasure to be here. Wow. Okay, so birds and beauty. I'm going to start with a poem for my grandmother. Shout out to grandmothers. Aren't grandmothers incredible? Are there any grandmothers here tonight? Yes, applause for the grandmothers. Just one of the most wonderful things. My Italian grandmother, I was going to share just a visual ID of myself as well. I'm Alessandra. I am speaking right now, and I'm about 5 feet tall and dressed in black. I'm a white cisgender woman, and I look a lot like my grandmother, who I'm going to speak about right now. Weaving it right in. So she came to Canada from southern Italy, from Calabria, for an arranged marriage, actually, is what brought her here. And then when that husband passed away, she had a second arranged marriage. And she lived her life in northern Ontario, keeping rabbits in her shed and this whole garden. The last time I ever saw my grandmother, she was in her 70s, and she left her husband. She was like, that's it, I'm done. She got a bus ticket and she left him in her 70s. Like, okay, when I'm like, can I do this hard thing? I'm like, all right, Celestina knew what was up. It's more complicated than that, but she was a fierce and powerful woman, and I'm gonna share a bit of that story with this poem before we move further on into this journey. Was it a current inside you? The kind of gravity that shows no mercy? When you left him, were the tides up to the crest of your throat? Did you say his name with the finality of Pompeii, and did he throw Jesus at your luggage? Quote your age like a forecast. Sei una strega, sei tanta sai. You were 76. Did you laugh then at his diabetic needles, his who will feed me? Finally unleash your flock of Florence nightingales as you walked goddess to the greyhound. Grandmother, how does it feel to walk away when your legs are a vineyard of varicose? I pray it is like stomping grapes for rich vintage, a bouquet of beautiful destruction, that you did not stumble at the ticket counter when you said one way. Arthritis in your feet, brown leather suitcase, wedding ring left on the nightstand like dentures, Catholicism just some old set of teeth. You sped through miles of dead volcano they called the Canadian Shield. Did it make you feel safe? The way arranged marriages and immigration officers are designed to make you feel safe, like a parcel to be kept beneath lock and key. But you come from the Turanian Sea, where Vulcan, god of fire, laced magma in his children's blood. What is dormant is not dead, it rises like Vesuvius. No steel stops a fissure in the earth's crust, and no fist. Did your husband forget what he was up against? Sei una strega, old woman, hag, sorceress, nona. I wanted to be small, Despite the mausoleum inside me, all which cackle and hiss, I wanted to fit inside the quiet of an oven. I wanted small arms, wanted them so bad I refused your olives, but still woke with the ulnas of a miner, the biceps of Poseidon, these gestures of a storm. You have made me so bad at hiding my anger, and I thank you for it. In my mother's kitchen in Toronto, you sat and joked about the life of single women. Fat Calibre's arms, almond-shaped eyes, unmovable as a mountain. But like a visit from Persephone, you rose that spring only to cross from the lands of the living that autumn. There are things we are scared to ask the living. So I never asked you how a woman walks away from a lifetime of coercion, but I imagine you might say, "Soy una estrella." Listen to the wisdom of your ancestors flowing molten within your skin. What is dormant always rises again. Thank you. Gracias. Thank you so much. I was talking to Janice Jolie earlier, and they were saying it's just such an honor to do this work and do this work with community and do this work on behalf of ancestors. I feel that so strongly, and to speak of her is always just such an honor. And the word strega means witch. Just so you all know, I realize some people might not be in on that inside scoop. I will not banter forever. I really could, but I'm not going to, I promise myself. I'm going to read, do a little bit of a story from my essay collection. It is sort of like spoken word, sort of like a storytelling moment. And I wrote this piece for my best friend in the middle of lockdown when she was going through really, really intensive cancer treatment. And we were discovering all the ways that love and resilience and care still shows up and blooms in unexpected and soul-breaking open ways. It's called Wildflowers. And if you will, picture wildflowers just falling all over you and finding seeds in your pocket. That's wonderful. Wildflowers. The radio is on, Tom Petty sings, and in this vision, we lower the car windows, we let the summer roll onto our bare shoulders. We belong, like Tom Petty sings. Somewhere we feel free, and we feel it. We feel it in our bare legs, feel it in the bag of gas station chips between us. At the end of where we are heading, there is a picnic blanket spread out in a field. Sparkling water because we don't drink, and tarot cards and a river. A good, clean river where we can throw off our summer dresses and wade in. Lay ourselves down, gasping with the deep cold, laughing as we see the shock in each other. We'll find the hard stones under our feet. We'll let our hair braid with the flowing water and all think free, free, thank God we're free. It's been literally the hardest of years. As for the pain and suffering we have come through together, you said in your letter, I've had enough. And into the envelope you'd placed wildflower seeds. Plant these, you said. Let nature do its magic. My friend, my friends, we will rise from that river, dripping that river, and dry ourselves in a field of wildflowers someday. Just lie there the way pollen does, waiting for the sun to make it right. When the bees come, when the ants drift over our skin, that's belonging. I did not know I could love myself this way, like a shallow river, like a cornflower, like a seed that never breaks and is forevermore just a seed. But this is the magic. We will not have each other forever. That's what this year told us. Not like a theory and not like a metaphor. Like, we found out there are so many ways to lose, and one way is that the losses, they just don't end. You said in the middle of all your treatment, we are in this together. And maybe you just meant all of us, everyone standing at the shore of Lake Ontario where you'd walk a few days after chemo, bathing in wind. We are in this together, us and the lake that sometimes tastes toxic, then miraculously clean. When we were kids, the shoreline was always poisoned. The zebra mussels cut your feet if you tried to wade in, but the city closed down enough factories, and it's changed like we have. It seems to be getting through. We are in this together, not because we face the same thing. We are in this together because we choose to be. So this is the magic. You plant the seeds, and it's not a symbol. You plant the actual seeds, and you find out what grows. We will not have each other forever, but we do have the car and directions to a nice river. And when we get there, the wildflowers will have risen like our lives from the husk of this year, like your hair from the scalp of chemo. For the pain and suffering we've come through, you're right, it's enough. Pass me the chips, I'll say, in the field of our future, once the sun has dried us good enough and we are back in our dresses with wildflowers lost through our hair, pressed to the warm skin of our backs. There is no perfect. There is no forever. But we'll stay there until dusk sends us running to the car for blankets, then drive off into the sunset. Drive right into the sunset, petals through our dresses, seeds stuck to the back of our knees, waiting for the moment they are finally shaken free. Thank you so much.
Oh, I didn't get here until you stopped. Can we do that one more time, please, for Alessandra Naccarato? How you doing? How's everybody doing? Feeling good? Okay, I just had to check. I'm glad, because we have more. There's more. So let me tell you about our next poet. So Peace Akintade. Who's heard of Peace Akintade? Okay, that's what I thought. But let me tell you a little bit about them. So Peace is an award-winning African-Canadian interdisciplinary poet, public speaker, chorus poem playwriter, and thespian organically from Yorubaland, Nigeria, and currently residing in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Peace is a gift, is explosively creative and remarkably inspirational. It has been an honor to witness their work on a number of different stages as both poets and organizers. And if you're not feeling moved by her work, you're just not listening. Peace once said in a workshop that when you share a memory, like our artists have been doing tonight, these memories become our memories too. So let's make some memories together and welcome Peace Akintade to the stage.
Hello, everybody. I'm Peace Akintade. I am, for the description, I am a Black female, mid-20s, with red long dress on. I have a timer here, so I don't talk for too long. But I wanted to share a few of my poems that really mean a lot to me. I think they're the closest thing to my peak, though there is no such thing as a peak, just another hill to go over. But I wanted to share it because it's so important to me. I wish I had more time to give you a calm down after these poems, I'm incredibly sorry, but but I know that Kay and the rest of the night will give you that sort of calm down. So it's a warning, but also a congratulations. Okay. A simple manifesto for Black girls. Black girls who sink their toes into the snow, digging for grass, hoping to touch dirt. Black girls who put crystals and pearls in their afro locks and wigs, singing prayers and hymns as they interlock their hair. Between their homegirls' bedsheet, they whisper of promising futures filled with red carpets and sugary speeches. Black girls who yell, "Let it burn," to any bum that questions their royalty. 'Cause black girls know that hellfires are only obstacles and not their destiny. Have you ever heard of angels on earth? You are looking at one. Remove your shoes. You are in the presence of an important one. Black girls who want to be loved tenderly, to only exchange pleasantries with those that smell of kindness and silk. No more are the days our coconut hands ignore the pleas of our ancestors. They are too tired to be strong, and we are too angry to be weak, so we scream. Black girls scream the same way our mothers did, with vigor and disappointment. We know we were born from the goddesses and the sun, so why do they deny our inheritance? When are the times we could hope for more? When were the times we could want for more? Are black girls not deserving of the same roses, to be compared by poets to yellow honeydew and sprinkled trinkets? I want black girls to be attuned to the foundation of astonishment. Lower your highs, you'll burn from her gracefulness. When I was 5, my grandmother stopped calling me a child. She called me warrior, peaceful warrior. And as she hugged me for the last time at 5, I entered the never-changing line of fallen black girls who never got to be girls. At 5, I was denied my inheritance to be a child. I was denied my honeysuckle, sugary red carpet-stained speeches. I do not want to be a strong black woman. I have yet to be a black girl. I have yet to heal my inner child. Black girls should not know of hellfire at 5. How many black girls forgot their crystals and pearls because they were too tired for prayers and hymns, too tired to touch the grass, too scared of the snow? I manifest for black girls to run barefoot on hilltop and imagine a world that allows them to grow, to reach for infinity, and for bystanders to never know our limitations. I want my black girl to be beautified for her charm and voice, to be surrounded by hugs that last far too long. I want them to leave a room with the warmth of a community. I want to be a black girl, and that the innocence that is robbed from us will never see the future generation. Black girl, do you know of the folklore of the tortoise and the dog, of the witches and the 3 hens? No? Then I'll tell you each night. I'll sing you the black anthem, your lullaby. Thank you. That poem always fills me with happiness, because it's always so nice whenever I get to perform it anywhere, and there's always like a mother or a black child that's like listening to it, and they fall in love with it, and I fall in love with them, and they're my child now, and I want to take them home and just put them in a bed and tell them it'll be all right. Unlike this next poem that tells you things are not all right. This is a poem that I did for End Sears. It's been 2 years right now, but End Sears is a hashtag that happened with the Nigerian youths who rebelled against the government and the election, and because of that, they were completely masqueraded. And the place that they were masqueraded is now a parking lot. Yep. So the only way I could deal with that was writing a poem for them, and being able to, send it out back to Nigeria, even though I couldn't be there. It's still a way for me to be part of the movement. So this is for the Nigerian youths who are fighting the good cause. And as we stand in the ashes of our ancestors, will we have the courage to sing about Black power? Will we then know of our bleeding mouth full of lies and false words given to us by the businessman? When our song becomes razors cutting at our throats, will we then rap about abolition, sweet, loud abolition? When our hands start shaking from the burden of raising so-called criminals for the prison regime, will we then shout about abolition, sweet, raw abolition? When the world slits our morals for token Black trophies, will we then be abolition, sweet, long abolition? Yes and amen. Yes and amen. Amen, amen, amen. Let me remind you of the most foolish ways to die. First, in the hands of timid oppressors. Second, kneeling by the church chapel. Third, while singing in a choir. In the corrupt cemetery, the poet sits by the hangman tree and trying to describe the vision before her. How do you describe death and nature grieving for her angels? Her skin black and swollen, slumped over the worship altar. Her skin black and swollen, burned by privileged hands. Her skin black and beautiful, mistaken for suicide. The poet balances her notebook between full belly and gasping cries. To nature, she spews curses on our mistaken freedom. She wants anger to rumble and enter the ears of guilty men. The beat of the talking drum cries for revolution, and soon the croak of frogs mimic police officers. The crickets die on their power lines. The innocents of youths are killed for free parking tickets. The legacy remained as parking ticket, and there is blood on the washcloth, white stains on the sand hills. And the masters are betrayed by the silence of their workers. Our voices shall no more speak blessing on a nation that believes they succeeded. The country of skyscrapers will be desolate as the children of nature whisper hate to the world. Skin black and angry shall no more hide the power of the sun. When will abolition be our lullaby? When will abolition be our anthem? And they tell me to speak of peace, to know peace. And I tell them to live my truth for a minute and see if peace lives inside our throat or beneath our feet. Foolish, foolish culture vultures, hipsters, modern colonizers. And I watch as Mr. Businessman uses our culture for profit, monetizes our clothing, monetizes our jewelry, monetizes our hair, brain cells, will to live. Your poor culture dried up by Mr. Businessman greed, and they won't even let us grieve or serve or want to help or strive. So we leave. We leave our suffering motherland to serve the big master in their mansion house. How will we know that our tongue has been cut off if all we say is violence? And as we stand on the shoulders of our ancestors, will we have the determination to preach about Black forgiveness? Will we then know of our bleeding mouth full of lies and false words given to us by Mr. Businessman? When our anthem becomes chains mocking our freedom, will we then rap about abolition, sweet, loud abolition? When our hands start shaking from the burden of raising so-called criminals for the prison regime, will we then shout about abolition, sweet, raw abolition? When the world pleads for love, for Black twisted salvation, will we then be abolition, sweet, long abolition? Yes and amen. Yes and amen. Amen, amen, amen. Thank you so much. And so you know, it is getting better. We have an election We will win. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, yes. Let's keep the applause going for Peace Akintade. I was gonna run, but I was like, you know what? You guys are nice, so thank you. We have one poet left in this portion of the evening. I think we're doing a really good run time, a little quicker than anticipated. And I'm so excited to introduce you to our next poet. So, Kassire is an internationally touring and acclaimed spoken word poet whose autobiographical poetry focuses on gender and sexuality, grief, and disability. Kay curated and edited A Whore's Manifesto, an anthology of writing and artwork by sex workers published by Thornapple Press, and you can get it in the bookstore downstairs, and I encourage you to do so. It's a fantastic collection. Kay has been organizing with accessibility in mind long before it was cool. And honestly, you guys, I really hope that it catches on because I hope people catch on to how cool accessible organizing is, because y'all, our communities are so much bigger than we're making space for. They have taught me so much in the last few years that I've known them, and it's just a gift to get to know them better with every event that comes by. And I encourage you to get to know Kay a little bit better by listening to their set. So please join me in welcoming Kay Kassire.
Hi, I'm Kay Kassire. I'm a small, white, non-binary person with short, red, curly hair. I'm wearing a white mask, a gray tank top, and black pants. My girlfriend and I are wandering winding roads. Suburbia sprawled before us. Everywhere I look is more of the same. I am holding my girlfriend's hand the same way I hold my breath, instinctually yearning for safety, forgetting that this too can be dangerous. A man paused at a stop sign, rolls down his window, and sucks the air from my lungs as he starts hounding us to go home with him. I freeze, unsure of whether to fight or flee, stuck in the awful in-between of wanting to retaliate and wanting to appease. My girlfriend chokes out a no, and we witness him shift as he calls us both bitches and barrels down the street. It isn't until after he's gone that I remember to breathe, and my mind wanders to the roots of this instinct to freeze. My mother raised me this way, to be afraid, and I do not know how to stay alive any other way. I've held too many friends as they've cried with bruised thighs over boys out bragging about their newest conquest. I tell my girlfriend, most days I feel mosquito, flying around freely, only to be caught dead in between his hands. Most days I feel like the worst thing I can do to him is leave him itching, and the worst thing he can do to me is kill me. Stars have accepted their fate as explosive beings. They are the storm after the calm. Can't be seen until it is too late. You sent me a message saying you aren't going to apologize, but you're sorry. And I realize you have always been a contradiction. Loving you was harder than it was to say goodbye. And saying goodbye was difficult in the same way it is to get out of bed. Naked feet touching cold floor, leaving warm blanket nest, bare arms exposed to chilly air, hair on legs stands at attention, the same way I used to every time you'd call. But as my skin gets used to this fresh air, and my eyes grow accustomed to the light, to being open again, I slowly start to forget you, until all that's left is the aftermath of a bad night's sleep, sheets thrown on the empty half of my bed, and cold air on naked skin. And the other day, I passed by a fountain, and all I wanted was to throw a penny into it so I could wish for you. But pennies don't exist in my world anymore, and you don't exist in my world anymore. And I can't afford to throw in a full nickel or dime, and I can't afford to try for a 5th, 6th, or 7th time with you. I need to stop wishing and start accepting the fact that we are more over and done than my cooking, probably burnt because I was too busy thinking about you and everything we could have been. All of the different possibilities, the millions of stars in the sky, and you staring out of your telescope, trying to find the moon, only seeing stars. Do they make you think of me? The way they are so explosive. Do they make you think of me? The way they are already long gone. In Judaism, it is a sin to kill myself. My body belongs to God, so suicide is seen as stealing something that is not mine. And this isn't the first time I've been told my body belongs to a man who has more authority over it than I do. I'm not saying that God is a man, just that I had to call them one in synagogue when I prayed. Hebrew, a gendered language, God, receiving masculine conjugations and gendered congregations. I watch as my friend tries to re-enter an Orthodox Jewish synagogue after her transition. Gets used to sitting in the back with the girls instead of up front with the boys, but neither of us know where we are supposed to sit. The Talmud acknowledges the existence of more than 6 sexes, yet synagogues are still separated by mechitzot. Barriers dividing binary genders, leaving me and my loved ones unsure of which section to sit in. A few hours away from where a good friend lives, a shooter opened fires at a synagogue in Pennsylvania named La Simcha. Tree of life becomes burial ground for bullet. Not even synagogue is safe. Isolating women to the back of the shul, ignoring non-binary existence in our scripture. Rebbetzin is the Hebrew word for female rabbi, but a dictionary will tell you it means a rabbi's wife. However, my mother took me to a Reconstructionist chavara, taught me that rules are made to be played with, that women are allowed to be rabbis, that my body belongs to myself and no one else. My mother's medically assisted death is a Jewish Schrodinger's casket, except there is no need to take the lid off the box. My mother both did and did not kill herself. She always was one to fuck around with God. I've got one last short poem for you all. I bought a stem of flowers for the anniversary of my mother's passing in the Hebrew calendar. 2 blooming lilies and 2 closed buds, placed beside my favorite picture of us, behind the yahrzeit candle and a couple of her crystals. 8 days later, on the anniversary of her passing in the Gregorian calendar, both lilies have wilted, yellowing with age, like pages in my mother's old notebooks. But the 2 buds have bloomed, the stem sprouting new life, reminding me of the bits of us that stick around even after our skin shrivels up like petals preparing to fall. Even after our petals have fallen, leaving nothing but a skeleton stem behind. There are still parts of us waiting to flower, seeds we've planted that will continue to grow. I was planted by my mother. She watered me for 19 years before the storm took over. Now that I am no longer drowning, I finally understand what it means to miss being watered. But these lilies remind me that even after being clipped from my roots, even after fragments have faded and fallen away, there are still parts of me waiting to flower, dormant buds, ready to bloom. Thank you.
Keep that applause going for Kassire. And while you're at it, let's give a big round of applause for all of our artists tonight. Janice Jolie, The Noble Savage, Alessandra Naccarato, Akintade, and Kassire. Wow. We're going to take a very short break, and I hope it's the kind of break that you're like, wow, I'm tired, and then you leave. Please don't do that. Please come back. Please come back. So we're going to take a short break just to reset this stage for our little conversation. We won't keep you much longer. You will be able to get a good night's sleep, so you're ready for all the tomorrow's for tomorrow. Let's just leave it at that. So with that, please go refresh yourselves, and then please come back. Thank you. Just want to just get a little wave from our handy sound techs in the back if we are okay to go. Okay, we are good to go. Would it be possible to get the stage lights down just a little smidge so we can see our lovely audience a little bit better? We need a t-shirt that says that. I don't know if we're all on. Yeah, okay. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming back for this portion of the evening. This will help us kind of get to know our artist a little bit better. And I just wanted to offer a couple of sort of definitions to situate the conversation, just so you're maybe familiar with some of the terms like spoken word or slam. I'm not sure how many folks. Well, let's just ask, how many folks have been to a poetry slam before? Okay, so we've got the right crowd. Excellent. Well, just a little quick definition. So spoken word or performance poetry is poetry that's intended to be performed. And I wanted to offer a definition put out by Speak North when they wrote a Black Lives Matter statement for the community. And their definition elaborates that spoken word and slam, as it is popularly practiced, stems from an oral art form created by Black artists. The art form is rooted in resistance movements, rap, spiritual movements, music, Jamaican dub, and African griot storytelling traditions. And today, spoken word now encompasses oral storytelling from indigenous oral traditions, theater, page poetry readings, stand-up comedy, and more. And slam is a way to gamify spoken word by assigning points for art by randomly chosen judges, with the top scoring poets as the poetry slam winner. It's a strange but invigorating practice. Speak North is the collective body connecting spoken word communities across what we call Canada. And they were around from 2005 to 2020. Folks still sort of exist, but it's currently on hiatus. And so this is an exciting time because usually that might mean we might have change and we might have growth after caring for burnout from a lot of our community members. So our artists tonight have been involved in some way with writing and spoken word communities across so-called Canada. As artists, they each have a history with spoken word, either as organizers, educators, or they've been in community. Some have moved away from predominantly spoken word stages in recent years, but continue to live on as spoken word artists in many people's memories. And at the very least, these artists on stage have performed at national festivals, and at most, they've helped to change the narrative of what spoken word looks like in this country. So really, a huge thank you is owed to each of you for the work that you've done, which is often unseen, and that you continue to do. So I just want everyone in the audience, would you please say thank you with me at the same time? So 1, 2, 3. Thank you! Thank you. That's really great. So let's get into our conversation. So artist, as an accessibility reminder, when you're speaking, if you can remember to just say your name that you're speaking, so folks can experience this along with us. So we're going to talk about just a couple of questions because we want some stories out of our artists, and hopefully we hear some. So, as artists, we're constantly evolving. So I'd love if we could take a look at your origin stories. What brought you into the spoken word community to begin with? I'm curious what made you curious. Was it a person, a poster, a passion? Do you have a story about your first time experiencing spoken word? Was it through slam? So what is your origin story? And we'll start with Janice.
Thank you, Kat. This is Janice Jolie speaking. My origin story. When I was a child, before I could speak, I was like running around in the basement with a microphone with our karaoke machine. Like la 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 la. So this is why it's like known in my family that I inherited music and art, as that was like a gift given to me. I sang at school, I sang in church choir, I played piano as a kid and I hated it. I played trumpet in grade school. And I liked being in band, and I liked being in choir, these things. And then in high school, university, I studied English literature. And I had really wonderful teachers who actually explained to me the beauty of how we use language to paint pictures and metaphor. And I was like, oh, that is pretty cool. And so when I was in university, I joined the music theater club. And that really helped me like fully expand into my personality and allow myself to be the weirdo that I was and be supported in doing that. But the thing about being in music theater or being a performer where you're auditioning is you are waiting for someone else to give you a part. I was like waiting to be cast in to get a solo. And as an Asian person in a white school, I was like, is it because I'm not a white person that they're not casting me in the, these questions came up. So like there are, I guess I'll call it logistics, to be kind, for how I was gonna ever speak for myself or be in the center stage. And one season, the Women's Center at Laurier, they were putting on the vagina monologues. And I had seen it the year before, and it changed me. I was like, wow, that was amazing. And then Carlos Andres Gomez came to Laurier and performed. He's a slam poet from New York City. And Britta B opened for him. And Britta B is an amazing spoken word poet. And Britta and I were like the two women of color in the entire English literature department at Laurier. And Britta performed, and she was wonderful. So I wrote my own poem for the vagina monologues. They had like this new thing where they let people write their own. And that was the first time I did spoken word. But for me, I came to it through theater. I was like, oh, this is a monologue, and I get to act it out and write it myself. And then eventually, I went and saw the Canadian Festival of Spoken Word in Toronto. It was the semifinals. I watched it, and I was like, these poets are semifinalists. We can do this. We have amazing poets in Kitchener-Waterloo. We could do this. So then I started the Poetry Slam, and because it was like we needed a stage. And a lot of producers, I think it's like you see the need for something, and because it doesn't exist, you create it. And so that's how I got into spoken word.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's great. Austin, would you like to tell us yours?
Yes, absolutely. The noble savage here. Kat has heard this story because she is in it quite a few times, so in order to keep it interesting for her, I will try and add a couple more extra details. The first event I ever participated at was at the Regina Library that was hosted by Kat in the early stages of the youth scene in Regina. And there was, I believe, 2 people competing and 3 prizes. And so, yeah, it was very successful the first round. I won. Yeah. And the first time I ever wrote, though, was in grade 3 for a girl. And from grade 3 to grade 9, I was a pretty sappy love poet. Wow. But yeah, the first poem that I ever wrote was about 8 lines for a girl, and I ended up giving it to her in the seat of the principal's office. So, yeah, it was, yeah, so that's a couple little extra details that Kat hasn't heard. But yes, that is pretty much my origin story, and ever since then I've been going to the Regina scene that Kat has welcomed me into very graciously. And yeah, it's been like that ever since.
That's beautiful, Austin. That's really great. I think as organizers, we're just making space, and it's not so much like welcoming or bringing you in. It's just like getting out of the way and letting you do that. So thank you.
Yeah, you've always been really great at doing that.
Thanks, Austin. Don't make me cry. Amazing. Alessandra, would you like to share with us?
Sure, this is Alessandra here. And I'm wearing a big fun hat, but if this light can come down at all, I would be so much happier if that is possible. I am a highly sensitive femme, that's how I identify. And that probably does connect with my poetry origin story somehow as well. I will say that one part of my story is when I was a kid, me and my best friend, who were always running around, my best friend, as I was a child, is now an incredible musician, a maikuda, and her mother, incredible, incredible poet and author, Norbese Philip. And from the age of like 6, we were just running around the house, her house all the time. And that house had one room. We were not allowed to go in the one room. And it was her writing room. And we were just these rapscallion, like 6-year-olds just running around. And whenever we could, we would go up to the writing room and we would sneak in it. And then we'd see in this room, this desk like covered in secret writing papers and these books, these walls lined with books. And when she was writing her new children's books, she would read them to us as she was writing them. And let me tell you, the magic was so real, so very, very real. And Norbese Philip is an unbelievable writer. If you don't know her work, please go check it out. She's the author of Zong. So it's, but that room, that magical door that we would open and peer into is like set in my brain as this doorway, I would say. And that was just all through my childhood, growing up in their house all the time. And I just decided I would be a writer, and I grew up around artists, and no one told me I couldn't. No one was like, that's a bad idea.
Amazing.
I mean, yeah. So that was pretty great. And I spent a lot of time in Montreal. That's where I mostly got involved in poetry slams. But I will say first, before Poetry Slam, I was really involved in the spoken word scene in Montreal, which can be a lot of like weird performance art. Which is wonderful. I love weird performance art. Or like, I did a lot of years of like performing with contemporary dancers.
Oh, yeah.
And making art installations and sound installations with spoken word before I ever touched slam. That is actually before I did Poetry Slam was like when we went a little more run of the mill. So I did many years of that in Montreal and then ran the Montreal Slam for many years. And what I love about slam and what I fell in love with was really community. And so starting in like 2009, when I started running the Montreal Slam, and we started going to the Canadian Festival of Spoken Word, and I started to be part of the national board. Just this incredible community, and we'd have these theaters filled with like 1,000 people there to hear poems, and it just, yeah. So I continue to love that. I don't do a lot of spoken word, but I'm so grateful to be on this stage and so inspired. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Alessandra. I think that's really refreshing too to hear that your entry wasn't through Poetry Slam, because say what you will about Poetry Slams, but like, damn, like, can we like take a moment to just appreciate spoken word in other interdisciplinary forms through music, through dance, through the door, like, yeah. So thank you. That's
Gonna be in your movie when they make a biopic about you. The first scene will be that magical door.
Yeah, yeah. Agreed. Tell me when it's made. Well, yeah. We'll do something with the festival. We'll stream it here or something. I don't know. Anyway, I'm making promises. I have nothing to do with like the Festival of Words besides this. Sorry to overstep, Amanda and Sarah. Peace, can you tell us your origin story?
Yeah, so this is Peace speaking. It's when you say that, like a bunch of things comes in my head, but I feel like I really appreciate the description that you made of, the origin of spoken word and, the many cultures that influence it. And you talked about like African folklore and African storytelling. And so I come from a village of storytellers. Before spoken word was a thing, I was already experiencing it. My grandparents were experiencing it, my great-grandparents were experiencing it. And to us, it was storytelling. So I think my earliest memory that I can think of is during the Lion Dance festival in Nigeria, and it's a very important one, very prestigious, where they have storytellers that go into hiding for weeks just to memorize folklore and to make up their own folklore. And it's amazing because of, like fabrics like this, they speak it or they practice it while making their clothing, and then they wear that clothing and tell the stories. And so it's really like a circle that I'm doing the same thing. But I remember when I was 5, this was just before we moved to Kuwait, I went to the Lion Dance with my mom, and it was the kind where you had a storyteller right in the middle, and then they'll let the children come and sit in a circle, and then it will be the parents and older children, and then it will be the grandparents of the parents, and then it will be like the elders. So it's like this really round circle, and the storyteller is right in the middle and starts telling the story. And so, as a joke, he asked one of the kids, would you like to come on stage to do it? And I had a speech impediment. Since I was 5, I was voluntarily mute. I did not want to speak to the world at all. Even now, I can feel myself always getting mute sometimes. And for some reason, I stood up. My mom was clenching me, stay down. And I went right up. And the only word that I could say, the only word I could remember to say was PDP power. It's the government. It's the name of the government that used to be in Nigeria. I've heard my mom yell PDP power in anger, and so I decided that's what I was gonna say, and everybody was laughing, and it was just it's a very core memory. They talk about kids having core memory. That was a core memory to me. And so coming to Canada and doing poetry and specifically doing spoken word, it goes deeper for me because it feels like every time I'm on stage, every time that I'm speaking, I'm reconnecting to that. I'm reversing my brain to remember that moment, to understand that moment, And I also like that I have, the 3 to 10 minutes where everybody can keep quiet and just listen to me talk. And I don't feel the pressure of having to listen to someone else talk to me. I can just talk. Which is really great. And yeah, we're the same Kidron where I did lots of interdisciplinary poetry before spoken word. So a lot of performance arts. Imagine having sand and circling yourself in sand in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. It's a lot. It can be a lot. So you make do with what you can, and now I get to do it all over Canada. So it's really, really nice. I guess that's my origin. That's my origin story.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for just relating how you're born into this. This is blood memory. This is cultural connection, and I've heard you say before about storytellers speaking over cloth and then having that be part of the story. And it's just a beautiful reminder of just that interconnectedness of story and of community. And so thank you so much for sharing that. That was really great. Thanks. Kay.
Hi, this is Kay speaking. I started writing as a young teenager. Had a pretty rough time in terms of my mental health at that point, and writing was an outlet for me to be able to express myself. My dad and my sibling are both songwriters, and I always had a hard time with the music part, but I could do the words by themselves. And it was when I was in the psych ward at 16, I remember like finding a corner of a room with a friend of mine, and we both wrote poetry, and we were reading our poems back and forth to each other. And they ultimately told me about a poetry slam in our city. I grew up in what's colonially known as Ottawa, and they said, yeah, there's this place called Cap Slam at the Mercury Lounge. You can go if you want to. So pretty shortly after getting discharged, I made my way over, decided to do a poem, and I ended up winning the slam. I remember Rusty came up to me after the show and gave me $50, and I said, wait, I get money? What? And he invited me to do that same poem again the next week at what was the finals. So all year, poets compete, and the poets who rank highest throughout the year get to compete at finals, and he asked me to open that show. And so I went and I did it, and I just kept going back. I was really looking for places where I felt like I belonged. I was looking for community at that point, and I found that in that community. And like a few months later, Youth Can Slam, which was the old National Youth Poetry Festival, came to Ottawa. And so I went there and got to meet poets from across the country, and kind of just snowballed. And I never really left the scene. Even after I left Ottawa, I moved to Toronto, and then I made it onto the Toronto Poetry Slam team, and then I moved to Vancouver, and I made it on the Vancouver Poetry Slam team, and kind of just kept doing it. It was that community that I was looking for.
That's really great. Thanks so much, Kay. I love just hearing from each of you about the sense of community. I mean, if you don't have it, create it. If you don't even know you're looking for it, find it somehow, and then just look at where you've come since then. Like, I think that's just the beauty of those individual choices. Like, you each chose to pursue this in some way, and you were able to silence that voice that maybe said, don't do that, because don't listen to that. So that's wonderful. And it sort of leads into our next question. And I think it'll be our final question. Short and sweet for y'all. About sort of hope. And so about that sense of community, and about like encounters or experiences that you've had with either events or publishers or a person or even a poem that you heard at a pivotal moment for you. What has given you hope, or what continues to give you hope in spoken word, in the community? Yeah, and we'll start with Janice again, if that's, yeah.
I want to draw a couple of connections to go to this question. At that Youth Can Slam, I believe Ahenakew performed. Do you remember in that hall, like the musicians with the drummers, with the drums?
I'm going to be honest, I don't remember much at all from my teenage years.
Okay.
My memory is awful. I just remember being there and feeling like these are my people. But like, I honestly, most poets that I know, like, I don't think I could actually say where I met any of you.
Well,
my memory
I
is just
featured at that
awful.
Youth Can Slam.
So then probably.
Yeah, and so did you.
Probably then.
And that's when I first saw Ahenakew perform, and she changed my. I was like, she's my new favorite
Wait,
artist.
so you
who is
both-
your best friend? Yeah.
So
and and Y. Josephine, who played percussion with Ahenakew, now plays in my band. Well, plays with me. Yeah.
I'm just, Kay speaking, that's so interesting. So you both featured at Youth Can Slam when I was a baby poet, and then Youth Can Slam stopped, so I co-founded Voices of Today, a new youth poetry slam, which is where I met the two of you.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, that's just...
It's an L-word web over here.
Oh my God, you guys.
Yes.
And just the full circle, this is Alessandra, is that the childhood friend that I broke into that writing room with was also performing at that festival.
Who is that?
Ahenakew.
Oh, Ahenakew, yeah.
I don't know if you all got chills or if it's just like the HVAC system, but
cool, right? And that definition you read of spoken word from the Black Lives Matter statement, I wrote that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought that was you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, I wrote that.
That sounds familiar.
So cool. So to answer your question about what gives me hope, it's artists. So much of our the art has become industry. In music, the thing that we create, the song, okay, it used to be you'd have to go and see them live. You'd have to buy a ticket. But then we made the recording. So then you could listen to the artist for free on the radio. So then it was harder to sell tickets to the show. But now they've taken away the recording, because now you can listen to it for free or stream it on. So the art that we make keeps getting taken away from us. And now it's like, buy a t-shirt. Like, I don't make t-shirts, I make poems, I make songs, right? And so it's really hard to be an artist when you're trying to make a living as an artist. And so like now I have a poem. Okay, now I have to put a snippet of the poem on Instagram so that people will want to come see the show, but people won't want to buy a ticket because like we're depressed because life is hard and maybe I won't have energy that day. And I live in Toronto, there's such saturation and abundance, like people don't have to commit to go to anything. There's 1,000 things happening every night. So the thing that gives me hope is artists, because still in this world of slow motion capitalism, apocalypse, Anthropocene, we still are able to make songs and poems out of nothing, out of our bodies as instrument. That is like the magic of being an artist. And when we're talking about collaboration, Jorge Ramos, who's the artistic director of West End Cultural Center in Winnipeg, he talks about artists and musicians, artists, we make love and we give love. Like when you give a song, you give a poem, you share it with people, it's like you give a little part of your spirit and you're like, yeah, do you like this thing that I made? It came from me, my life, my body, my soul. And you just give it away to people and hope that it gives them meaning or joy or something, or connection. And so when we get to be together, it's so nice to be together again, post-lockdown years. That's what inspires me. Yeah, and like listening to the poems and the other writers here, that's like, oh yeah, this thing that we do is really special. And that's like the special thing about being a human being. Like I don't know, maybe the orcas right now are having artistic conventions in the oceans as well, but I think that magic that we can create is what keeps me going.
That's incredible. Yeah, creating art is an anti-capitalist act of revolution. Yeah, I think that's so powerful. Yeah. Austin, can you share with us what gives you hope?
Well, for starters, I'll say that I love and just believe in the community's warmth and just embrace of new people and everything, and I think that it works for itself and kind of draws in the people that it wants to be drawing in, and the people who love it always end up staying. So I feel like I know that in a lot of places we have a saying that's like, it'll be like, artists, please come back. Please come back, artists. And like a lot of the time I feel like we don't even need that because it's so comforting in the community and space all the time. But if I were to say, try to find something specific, when the AGT poet winner, I forget what his name was, I think it's Brandon Leake, a poet went and won the America's Got Talent, and went and won the full thing, and I think that just gives me a bit of hope that it's being seen by a lot more people and on a broader scope, and kind of not just the kind of like movie style CD in a bar, cigarette smoking with the mic, and yeah, I think it's being seen in a lot more of a normal sense that everyone kind of gives off on stage. Yeah. And yeah, I think it's being seen by more of a bigger crowd that have been a little bit more unaccepting of poetry just because of the stigma it's grown over the years. But yeah, I think the community itself just has the strength to bring people in.
That's great. That's beautiful.
I love that you brought up that it was America's Got Talent, this like huge show, because for a lot of folks, and maybe folks in our audience can relate to this, in the first, maybe you remember one of the first times you heard a spoken word poem, or just that magic and what it like how it differs from page poetry, which can also be like obviously super powerful. But yeah, it's the community that keeps us coming back.
Well, and the difference with page poetry is usually it's a solitary experience. You read it by yourself and you're having this imaginative story in your head, but spoken word is done live in community, right? It exists between us.
Yeah, a dialogue between audience and performer. That's so great. Yeah. Alessandra, what gives you hope?
Wildflowers. Flocks of geese. You all here. I feel like I'm dancing a little between worlds. So the question is not complicated, but something to ponder, because really I identify a lot as a author and page poet with a big background in spoken word, and I love spoken word. And also a bit of a niche editor of spoken word artists writing their books of page poetry. This is specifically what I do. What gives me hope? I mean, I don't know if it's hope. I am profoundly like in love with poetry, It's like a poem is like an entire universe just like opened in your brain. Sometimes it's just like a full body experience to read a poem. And I think that we can experience that too when we're experiencing that on stage with an amazing spoken word artist. And I think those two worlds can collide. Like those experiences, the electricity of a great spoken word performance and the unbelievable electric magic of a really good page poem. When those two combine, it's like really something divine. And I don't know if that gives me hope or just like so much joy and desire for it to continue, that I would like dedicate my life to it, Like I love that. And I do think that other people do too. I think when we read those poems and those poems reach us, and I do think poetry that's going out in the world will just keep changing. Like that those things are just gonna keep meeting each other. But I guess to say in a more profound way, I think what gives me hope is that we just keep finding ways to show up for these stories and for each other, and to do it pretty humbly, and to do it however we can, and to find ways to create spaces for each other. And we can get really like, oh yeah, we're competing, but generally spoken word and slam is like not very pretentious. And that is a profound thing, to just have people put so much care and like ritual into the cultivation of this space is really profound every time I come back to it. So that does, it gives me a whole lot of hope. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I just had a thought and it just like totally poofed out of my head. I was thinking about speaking our poems or reading our poems off of a page, and how we sometimes like simultaneously like give other people permission to do the same sort of thing that we're doing, the same sort of work that we're doing. And that comes to mind because I'm thinking of Canadian Festival of Spoken Word in Victoria, where I saw Alessandra perform a poem about something. I won't be like specific about it just because whatever, but I remember like hearing that piece and just being like, wow, I have permission to write about this thing that I haven't been writing about. And that was like a pivotal moment. I mean, these poetry festivals like this just are packed full of all these little tiny moments that just make magic. And yeah, so like thank you guys for creating magic and just continuing to do that. Yeah. Peace.
Hi, this is Peace speaking. For me, I think hope is the resistance of youths. I have to say, like, I guess I'm 21, and I started poetry very young, at 13. But I started it through a more of a ambassador, activist point of view, where I would come to conferences as a very, very young age and speak to a room full of people that do not look like me and honestly would not really care what I have to say. They're here for a conference. But I would start out the conference with a poem that I write, either about police brutality or about immigration laws and all of that kind of thing at a very young age, you know, and it continued until now, you know, with, besides spoken word poetry, I'm also doing activism work. Besides activism work, I'm working with the treaty commissioner. Besides treaty commissioner, you know, I have to do all of these talks in workplaces, being like, don't be racist, stop being racist. And in each event that I do, each workshop that I do, and I'm blessed that this is like my full-time job, but I know that I have to always internalize things and then let it go, internalize and let it go. And I feel like that's what a lot of the youths nowadays are doing. They're internalizing all of the negativity of the world, and they're trying to find a way to let it go. And poetry to me is letting go. Poetry is the only way that I can put all of those thoughts and allow it to be free. And I know that every time that I read a poem on stage, that same poem that I wrote in a really bad place, each time that I'm reading it, like you said, you're taking a little bit of your soul out, but also the audiences are taking tiny, tiny little percentage of that hurt, of that pain. And by the time I've done it for the third time, I don't feel a heaviness in my heart, you know, because I'm sharing it to people and people are receiving it, you know. And that, of course, talks about audience health and how to allow them to also find a way to let go. But yeah, I remember, I'm saying this now, if you asked me this question like 2 weeks ago, I would not be in a good place to answer. I think we need to talk about burnout on poets, and especially poets that do a lot of activism work in their spoken word poetry. But I remember I did a show quite recently for a jazz fest in Saskatchewan, and it was one of the first show in a very, very long time where I was happy. I was like happy on stage, I was dancing on stage, I felt completely just relaxed on stage. I felt like, yes, I was talking about a lot of heavy stuff, but I felt completely just surrounded by my community in Saskatoon. Like they really showed up to show up, you know, and it was a mixture of youths and old people of, sorry, of everyone, you know, and it's also like people from my community, the Nigerian community, people from the indigenous community, people from like the immigrants and refugees that I've done workshops with, they also came. Those people that I told don't be racist, they also came, you know? And it was just like I came up on stage and I just saw this room like filled up to the brim with people that I've either workshopped or done something with, and new people that have never seen me before but just wanted to know what's up. And by the end of it, you know, they all stood up and clapped together, you know, and that gave me hope. That really gave me hope, and it made the burnout just be a tiny little voice in the corner rather than like a monster trying to swallow me whole in the darkness. Misery, misery, oh my misery. Okay, but yeah, that's what gives me hope, youths.
Thanks so much, Peace. We're all laughing as you're saying misery, misery, but like, I mean, your delivery is funny as all hell, but I think that says a lot about, like, especially as performance poets or poets who put on a public front of some kind, there's a sense of entitlement that our audiences have for us. And for our time. It's sometimes, and I think I hope there's more space for recovery, for care, for not needing to burn out, to be a full-time artist without having to literally put everything into it. I mean, we're just starting to get into like some big world dreams that, you know, I'm thinking of that maybe you could make. Anyway, I'm not gonna get there, but maybe we'll get there one day. Maybe there's room for us to create art without harming ourselves in the process. I know.
Radical. I love it.
Let's make that happen. Can we? I'm looking at you all.
Like,
Can
you
we
can
make that
definitely make art without hurting yourself, but it's the world that we live in, which is inherently exploitative of artists, that I am scorning at.
Well
This
said.
turned
Thank you.
so good.
Yeah.
This turned so nice.
Yeah. Kay, can you tell us what gives you hope?
Yeah, this is Kay. I think when I think of hope and poetry community, I think of moments of feeling like I'm in community and feeling like the present is a little bit easier, which then makes the future feel more possible and less intimidating. Thinking of moments like my first slam and feeling accepted, feeling like, oh, I'm good at something, at a time where I didn't feel accepted or like I was good at anything. And that gave me hope at a time that I really needed it. And then the other moment that comes to mind is right after my mom passed away. I was 19, I broke off an engagement I was in, moved out of our apartment, and crashed with Charlie Petch for a little bit before I was gonna fly to Vancouver for a poetry festival. And I think it was four days after my mom passed away, that Charlie runs this series called Hot Damn It's a Queer Slam. And it was the finals for that, and I was competing in it, and I went, and the features at that show were Ciara Freeman and Natasha T. Miller, and they were on the Good Grief Tour, where they were both speaking about losing family members. And they did a workshop on writing about grief and loss, and this was 4 days after I lost my mom. And that was just exactly what I needed in that moment, and that made the present feel better, which made the future feel more possible. And that gave me hope. And then also it also helped that I won the slam that night and got a free trip to Washington, D.C. to compete at the International Queer Poetry Slam. That also gave me hope and more to look forward to. And it's just these little moments of things falling into place at the right time for me that really helped me hold on and get through some of the hardest points in my life.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Kay. I think if my timeline is right, and you had mentioned like you don't really remember where you kind of like met everyone, but I'm pretty sure that when I met you, it was at that time when you had been moving to Vancouver because you toured through Regina, or it was within 6 months of that.
Yeah, I did because I left and I was like, okay, I'm going to this poetry festival. I was like, okay, I'm going to another poetry festival. I'm just gonna travel with my poetry.
Yeah.
And I did that for 6 months before landing in Vancouver. And I passed through Regina in that time.
Yeah, and you stayed at my apartment, and I remember just being like, wow, they're so fucking cool. Like, just blown away. But I think it was there that you let me know. Were you thinking of organizing Voices of Today at that time?
Yeah, during
we
that
had
time.
Conversations about that, and that helped like motivate me to get stuff going in Regina, so we were ready for that festival. So God, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. It's
Yeah.
nice. I always love getting memories back. It's very nice.
I love that you say that too, because it puts that responsibility of those memories on all of us to share those memories with each other. So let's do that. Wow. Again, is it the HVAC? I don't know. I'm just like chills.
Feeling magic.
I'm
It's
feeling magic.
poetry magic.
It is poetry
That's Janice
magic.
speaking.
I haven't done that once. I'm so sorry. This is Kat speaking. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Aren't they brilliant?
I think was it you who brought up the notion that when someone does a poem in a certain way and you're like, oh, that gives you permission?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
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 Maybe if we have any examples of that and to close or something?
Yeah. That's a great question.
Johnny McRae, water bowling.
Oh.
Johnny McRae is a poet. He's like, now I will perform water bowling. I had no idea what it was. It's a bowl of a metal bowl with water in it, and he would blow bubbles on it and like beatbox on the water and play it like an instrument. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I love it.
I love
He did
that.
it in his poetry. So that enabled me. That gave me permission to be weird.
I love that. Does anybody else have like examples of when you had permission to do something? We might have to take a moment of silence to think of this. Okay. No, it's fine.
I don't know. I am really bad with names. I'm so sorry, and that's why like this is my nightmare, but I'm gonna do it. It's during the Saskatchewan Poetry Festival where I met you two. There was a group of people that came to do a show right in the middle called Whiteface. And I don't know the name of it, but...
Was that Lady Vanessa?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Whiteface, for anyone that doesn't know, it's this incredible performance art piece about these two people that are pretty much in whiteface, and it's like a mimic of the of blackface and also like indigenous representation in media. And it was just a bunch of things. It was dance, it was videography, it was photography, it was like fruit being smushed on your face. and I sat there and I was so happy because people would like come in and then they would leave in the middle of the performance. And that made me feel like I don't need to care what anyone thinks. I am creating good work, you know? And the way that they were just so unabashed about it and so humble afterwards, just, yeah, I base a lot of my work on what they do, at least the performance art part of it, yeah.
This is Kay speaking. That reminds me of another moment at the Saskatoon Poetic Arts Festival where you and Mel V did this beautiful piece with, they were performing a poem, but they had like, was it a bucket of flour they were
Yes,
using?
so it was supposed to be ashes. We used baby powder. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was just baby powder everywhere, and it was just like I'd never seen a poem done in such a creative, unique way with this, like, the performance that y'all did was just like amazing, and that like reconceptualized like what I thought of like in terms of a performance poem, like made me think of all of the different ways you can perform, and like more than just incorporating like music or choreography, but like just thinking outside the box and taking baby powder and just fucking around with it. And it was so cool.
Yeah, thank you. It was based on whiteface.
Oh,
Yeah, so
Oh
it
my
all came in
God,
a circle.
Inception.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What comes to mind when I'm thinking about what gives permission was, so early slam, some of the things that I had been writing at the time were things that I hadn't been ready to be sharing, but I was sharing them anyways because I felt that when I was winning slams, it's because I was doing trauma poems. And I think in terms of what gave me permission, it was permission to not write trauma poems when I saw other artists be successful with work that wasn't traumatizing them or their audiences. Yeah.
Kay speaking, yeah, like Jillian Christmas's bike poem.
Yes.
Just like, doesn't need to be serious. It can just be the silliest poem about cursing out someone who stole your amazing bike, but like seeing an audience just love that and seeing that win at a slam and thinking like, oh, it doesn't all need to be trauma.
No.
If I could bring someone into the room, my co-organizer for Write Out Loud, Lauren Carlson, is sitting over there. We both organize the Saskatoon poetry community over there, and talking about poems that you feel like, okay, this gives me permission to just laugh. They have this poem called Mayonnaise.
I love that poem.
And it's a poem about their deep love for mayonnaise, which is actually innuendo for something else. And, and every time that they perform it, I laugh, even when I'm having a very hard time. And like, my favorite part was when we went to Toronto and they performed it right after someone just did a very traumatic poem. And it was comedy gold. Everybody laughed, and it was a really nice community moment. Yeah, you should like put it on Spotify. I feel like a lot of people would, yeah.
Bandcamp, get money.
Yes, Bandcamp, thank you very much. Looking out for the artists.
That's so good. No pressure either, like Alessandra and Austin, for giving an answer.
I could start going into a lot of literary works that are more written works, but I'm not going to do that right now, and I'm luxuriating in these suggestions, but this has been an amazing conversation.
It's been really great.
To speak to the permission type stuff, as I said, I used to be quite a sappy love poet, and there's nothing wrong with writing about that, because there actually were quite a few very deep lines that I loved and have kind of like morphed into meaning something else through other poems and stuff like that. But I did have a moment where I had to transition from kind of just writing about that. As Kat said, I used to write with like my hair and perform with my hair over my face all the time, and it would be like a statue. And you wouldn't see my face at all, and you could probably barely hear me. And yeah, that was all the way back when I started performing, and I remember there was just a really, I forget who even performed it, but there was just a really ridiculous poem where it was just one word repeated over and over again in a million different ways, and they were running up and down the stages, running up and down the aisles. Do you remember who that might have been, Kat?
It's on the tip of my tongue.
Was it R.C. Wisniewski?
It
sounds like it.
It sounds like RC, but it wasn't.
think
It was.
so.
It was. It might have been. It might have been Erin Cotton.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, because I remember her. Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, anyways, they were just running up and down, and I was like dead center, so they passed me over and over again. And I was just like, whoa. And I was just like, okay, this is a lot. And yeah, it brought me out of my just needing to sit there and be sad, wallowing in it. And it brightened my day a lot and made me see a brighter side to poetry, I guess. And yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you all for your generosity tonight. Just of spirit, of poetry, of presence. It has been incredibly moving. This is the highlight of my summer. Sorry to the rest of the summer. It's all downhill from here. Just kidding. But yeah, just thank you all so much, just so deeply. Buy their books.
Thank you, host.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Yeah, and again, thank you to all of our organizers, our brilliant sound techs, all the volunteers, to you, our audience, for making this relationship possible. And buy books, fill out evaluations, express how much you want this. You can tell who's the organizers in the audience, right? And with that, thank you so much for spending this time with us. And I wish you all a beautiful night. Is there someone from the festival who could take a picture of us?